Hey guys, it's Steve for CollectorMania. Continuing on our 32 series, we are on to Junk, or Abzan as it's called nowadays. This is Karador Ghost Chieftain. This is probably the linchpin generic Abzan commander that if there ever was one. He's super effective for what he does, and he's just fun to build around, to be honest. I know it's kind of, like I said, it's probably overplayed in a lot of ways, much like the Animar deck tech, but I don't know, I love this deck. It's one of my originals, and I probably will always have it. I've torn it down like 3 or 4 times and rebuilt it 3 or 4 times. So, what?
Show that off.
Oh, Karador, yeah. So I have altered it. That's another reason why I've kept it. It's a little bit different. I've turned it into kind of like just a macabre like skull, like with this green smoke around it. I don't know if you guys got a really good image of it, but anyway, lots of fun. So he is a 5 colorless, black, a green, and a white. A legendary creature, Centaur Spirit, 3/4. Karador Ghost Chieftain costs 1 color less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. So already a really cool commander ability by having a huge reduction cost. I think this is the first time they actually did that too. There are a few now, but I think this is actually the first time where they actually made it easier to cast your commander from the command zone. So really fun, and that makes sense. It wasn't the first commander product. So anyway, during each of your turns, you may cast 1 creature card from your graveyard. Really, really cool. It is very effective for what the deck is trying to do, which is mainly dredge, honestly. This is a dredge graveyard deck. It's clean and simple. It works great. And yeah, let's get into it here. First up, we've got our one and only Planeswalker, and that's Liliana Death's Majesty. It's a newer card that just had to go on the deck. As soon as I saw it, I knew that it was essentially tailor-made for Karador, in my opinion, you know. So her +1 is create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. So already you're getting that kind of like cycling cards and creatures into your graveyard effect. And then its -3 is return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. So really, what else can you ask for there? It's super effective at doing what Karador is already doing. So you're just like doubling up on an effect. You can even -3 as soon as you cast her. Usually I do the +1, but you know, to each their own. Then we've got a -7, destroy all non-zombie creatures. So really cool effect. I don't find myself using it that often. You know, ultimates are really not that easy to achieve in the first place, but I run a heck of a ton of non-zombie creatures in here. So that part's not really effective to me, but the first 2 abilities makes sense for me. So anyway, that's Liliana. Moving on to our creatures. First up is Kami of False Hope. This is the white version of the Spore Frog that everybody uses. I have a Spore Frog. I just wanted to be a little bit unique and throw this guy in there instead. Sacrifice Kami of False Hope. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So you essentially set up a loop where you just cast this guy, prevent all the combat damage from somebody, recast the next turn, then you're not taking damage. At least from one opponent, you know. You can set it up whichever way you want to there. So, really cool card. The Spirit, one of my favorite creature types, of course, as well. The artwork is awesome. It's Kamikawa block, so yeah, artwork is always awesome there. Then we've got the Fauna Shaman. This is one of the super lynch, you know, just you want to put this in this deck no matter what. It will find whatever creature you're looking for. It also has the double effect of throwing whatever creature you want into your graveyard, which is, you know, something you're looking to do in this deck, of course. On from that, we've got a Grim Flayer, another new card from Shadows over Innistrad, I think, something like that. It's kind of like your creature version of your Grizzly Salvage or, you know, other effects like that. It is a 2/2 trample for 2. Whenever Grim Flayer deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 3 cards of your library, and then essentially you can just put whatever you want into your graveyard or put the other ones on top. It also has Delirium. It gets +2/+2 as long as you have 4 or more card types among your cards in your graveyard. So really cool early game, really good late game. It just does everything you want it to do, especially once again in a deck like this where you're just putting, you know, creatures in your graveyard, keeping your lands on top. That, I guess, is like one of the main things, the downsides of this deck. Most of the time I find myself accidentally milling things from the top of my library that I don't want to, like my Sorceries Instants or lands. So this is a fun way to kind of get around that. So there's Grim Flayer. Then we've got Lotleth Troll, another way to just dump a ton of creatures into your graveyard and then have them there to cast Karador for 3, essentially. So really fun card. Also has Regenerate. also makes itself bigger. So then we've got Quasali Pride Mage. Once again, just like the Spirit that we were just talking about, a really fun way just to keep cycling like a enchantment / artifact destruction creature. It has the added benefit of giving that Exalted, which sometimes can come into play, especially when you're swinging with like big creatures like Razakath or anything like that. So really cool, really fun. Just a nice little card. I know it's shooting up in price lately just because, I don't know, I think there's a lot of speculation for the Cat Tribal deck, and I know it goes in a lot of modern decks as well. So if you have a few copies, I would hold on to them for now. Then we've got a kind of a card that I found through my research, and that's Reliquary Monk. So a big part of, once again, this deck is sacrificing stuff, putting it in your graveyard, and then reusing. This guy is just really fun just because as soon as you sacrifice him, you destroy target artifact or enchantment. So more artifact and enchantment destruction built into the deck. Just a fun little cleric, 2/2 for 3. Just a cool card. Older too, which is always kind of fun as well. And then we've got one of our first dredge mechanics, and that's Stinkweed Imp. This guy's a lot of fun for, first of all, chump blocking, and also just destroying one of your opponent's creatures that they're swinging at you with, because essentially it has a form of Death Touch. I'll read it for you. It's whenever Stinkweed Imp deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. So it's not exactly Death Touch, but it has the same effect. It also has Dredge 5, which is really what we have in the deck for. You know, you get it killed by destroying one of your opponent's creatures, and then you just Dredge 5 next turn, get it back to your hand, put 5 cards into your graveyard, and you've kind of gotten that ball going, you know. So there's that. And then we've got a Disciple Bolus, one of those really key sack outlets. You throw this guy down, gain a bunch of life, and draw a bunch of cards. I mean, it's just super effective for what it does. Then one of our win conditions, Gerard Golgari Lichlord. I know this guy has an entire deck built around himself. I've won more games with that combo in this deck than I can even count. It comes out of nowhere. People usually are just like, what the heck are you doing? Especially since he can recur himself using his effect, put himself back in your hand, then you can cast it. It's just super effective. With Karador, once again, just being able to cast him from your graveyard, it works perfectly. It's beautiful almost. It's beautiful. So, Gerard Golgari Lichlord, he also turns himself into a monster, being as big as essentially your graveyard. So yeah, super cool card. And then we've got Siege Rhino. I know, some people thought they'd never see it again, but I proved them all wrong. Siege Rhino is an amazing card. It kind of limits itself in Commander because it can only be put into Abzan or 4-color, 5-color, groupings, but I found it extremely effective. It is an amazing card. I understand why it ruled Standard for as long as it did, just because it does so much. I mean, essentially, you're giving yourself a 6-point life swing just with one card. It's a 4/5 with trample. Like, it's so good. And recurring this guy just makes it that much better. I've won games with Siege Rhino before, just by, sacrificing him, recurring him, sacrificing him, recurring him. Yeah, super cool card. On to another one of our super key dredgers, that's Golgari Grave Troll. This guy is probably the best one. I know a lot of people, it got banned from Modern for a reason. Is it banned in Legacy? I can't remember. Anyway, I know it's banned in Modern for a reason, because it's super good. Dredge decks were running this for a reason, of course. And, yeah, super cool card. I love it. I have like 2 copies of it, and they go, it goes in these types of decks. Dredge 6 is nice as well. On from that, we've got our second half of our Gerard combo, and that's Lord of Extinction. This is maybe the sneaky part about it, because you just play the Gerard, you let him sit there for a few turns. People usually don't pay attention to him until he's, crucial. And then all of a sudden you lay down Lord of Extinction and you just destroy the entire table. So there's that. It's super fun, kind of dirty, but it works. It's super effective. Then we've got Shriek Maw. This is it's one of those cards that's really fun to find early game, because you can just pay the evoke cost, put it in, or destroy something, and then put it in your graveyard, make Karador cheaper, have something else to recur later. Just a lot of fun. Then we've got Uvenwald Hydra. This is a newer edition. There are a few key lands in here that I want to find. Maybe not as many as I should have in here, which I'll kind of buff that up. Actually, I've been looking at the land base recently and wanting to add some more stuff. But anyway, for now, Uvenwald Hydra is mainly used to fix colors, but it's super effective for that. And it also, I find it really good defensively. It comes out, it stops your opponents from swinging with their giant flyers because it's equal to the amount of lands you control. And in a deck like this, Abzan, I mean, it's got green and black, which are both really effective at the combination. I mean, is really effective at getting lands onto the battlefield. There's a few ways, as we'll see later on, to also just bolster that. So, Uvenwald Hydra. Plus, recasting it from your graveyard is really fun as well. Okay, and then we've got a World Breaker. As I talked about in the Animar video, having ways that are on cast instead of ETB in your ETB decks can be really essential. You get locked out by like a Topor Orb or any of those types of effects. It's just nice to know that you have something in your library to get around that lock. So I've started including World Breakers and Ulamogs in pretty much all my decks when I can. So there we go. There's that. And then another new addition, we've got Razakath, the Foul-Blooded. This guy essentially does everything that you want him to do. He sacrifices creatures. He tutors for whatever you want. I mean, this deck is very, I guess, toolboxy if you look at it. It's trying to find particular pieces and then use them, you know, exploit them as much as you can. So, yeah, Razakath. He's an 8/8 flying trampler as well. I mean, you can't really get around that. I mean, plus, once again, talking about like how easy it is to ramp in this deck, like he comes out pretty early. And he's pretty menacing, and being able to recast him once again after somebody removes him, just that much better, you know, the icing on the cake there. Okay, so on from that, we're going to move into our artifacts. We've got a Birthing Pod, of course. Why wouldn't we play this? It does everything we want it to once again. Like, it runs right into the, you know, toolbox factor. It also, you know, puts something in your graveyard. It finds whatever you're looking for. It's a super cool card. I recommend it whenever you can play it. I don't know how many times I've cast it for 3, pay 2 life, and then activate it for 1, paying 2 life. Yeah, that's a 4-point life loss, but sometimes if you're going to grab a Siege Rhino or something like that, who cares? You know, like what's the matter with that? So there's that. And then we've got another key artifact in my opinion, and that's Slate of Ancestry. This card is super good in any type of graveyard strategy. Or any type of weenie strategy, that as well. Like, White Weenie loves this card, because usually you're going to just play out your hand, have a million cards on the board, activate this, draw a million cards, and you're not discarding anything because everything's already on the board. Whereas in this type of deck, you actually want to have stuff in your hand, like your creatures that you just aren't ready to cast, throw them in the graveyard, make Karador cheaper, set up your later game. You know, really cool card. I recommend it. I didn't even know it existed until about 2 years ago when somebody played it on me, and I was just like, what the heck? How did you draw like 20 cards? That's ridiculous. So yeah, highly recommend it. Okay, so on from that, we're getting into our enchantments. We've got one feature, and I believe 2 others. I can't remember what the other ones are off the top of my head, but Evolutionary Leap. Another effective card for this type of strategy. You are, once again, sacrificing a creature, putting something in your graveyard, then finding a new creature. So really good against Wrath effects because, you know, somebody's looking to essentially put you back to the Stone Age, but you've got a way to kind of like mitigate that by going and just flipping through the top of your library, finding creatures, and just setting up your hand for the next turn. So, really cool card. The activated cost, I know I'm being greedy here. I wish it cost, like, I wish you could pay any color mana, but super greed, super greed. Sometimes having to pay that green can kind of limit you on how many creatures you can sacrifice to it, but really that's just setting up your board state right and, you know, maintaining it, really. Okay, so on from that, we've got our instants. I believe there's only one feature here, and that's Grizzly Salvage. Really fun card to play at the end of, you know, your second turn, or third turn, I guess it would be, somewhere around there. And then just get, you know, whatever you need into your graveyard, set up for next turn. Really fun card. I like it a lot. I also really like the artwork. I don't know, like I know there's 2 different versions at this point, but I think the original is the artwork that I prefer. It's just like this guy like in a tunnel, like picking off this dead thing and trying to find useful parts, I guess. Okay, so on from that, we've got our sorceries. First up is another key dredge card, and that's Life from the Loam. As I talked about earlier in the deck tech, this deck has a really bad habit of putting a lot of lands in the graveyard, which you kind of need those. You know, you want to play them, so having this type of effect where you can just dredge, or you can pay 2, get 3 lands back, and then have your dredge set up for the next draw is really effective. So, Life from the Loam, I know it's a super expensive card. It's used in a lot of decks, which makes sense. Here, it's probably utilized for what it was actually meant for, so I like it. And then we've got a Buried Alive. Talking about Toolbox once again, this is a really fun way to kind of turn tutor on its nose, because you're not tutoring for your hand, you're tutoring for your graveyard. So it's a little bit different from like your demonic tutors and stuff like that, because it's not usually instantly available, but because you're playing Karador, it is. So there's a way to kind of get around that, and just a fun card to have. I'd recommend picking up copies for like zombie decks, graveyard decks, once again, basically anything that's looking to use its graveyard. Then we've got another big card in Living End. This is kind of the, I don't know, it's the more expensive version of right now of Living Death. It didn't used to be that way until I think the Living End deck blew up in Modern or somewhere. I think it's either Modern or Legacy, somewhere in there. Obviously, I don't play those formats, so I don't know too much, but it's a fun card. The suspend can actually put a lot of people on edge. Like, they won't play a lot of their stuff just because they know it's going to die here eventually. The kind of hard part is that, once again, they know what you're doing. It's a little less surprising like Living Death is, because Living Death you can just cast and then it just happens, whereas Living End you gotta wait 3 turns for it to happen. So I've actually had people just kill me because they know this is going to go off the next turn, and that kind of sucks. So you do have to be a little bit careful with this, but still a very effective card. And then once again, going back to our land problem, we've got a Splendid Reclamation. So actually sometimes it can be beneficial to have a bunch of lands in your graveyard, especially if you've got this in your hand and you know you're just going to cast it on turn 4. Like, if you can somehow like Grizzly Salvage your Stinkweed Imp into your graveyard and then dredge 5 and then hit like 4 lands, like, this is definitely worth paying that cost, you know. So yeah, Splendid Reclamation. Then we've got Demonic Collusions. This is a tutor that not only tutors, but it also puts stuff in your graveyard. It's got the buyback cost of discard 2 cards, so you can keep casting it, then buying it back, putting stuff in your graveyard, casting it with Karador. You know, there's just a nice chain there that you can follow. So really fun card. I know it's one of the tutors that's probably not played that much because it costs 5, but the buyback cost is worth it to me. So there's that, and I think after that we're going to get into our lands here. I've featured 3. First up is the Gyro Reach Sanitarium. Really cool card. There are a few colorless matter cards in here, like the World Breaker and stuff like that, so it's really nice to know that you have that in the deck. It also has the really cool effect of paying 2, tapping it, each player draws a card, then discards a card, so it helps you set up and then sometimes hinders your opponents, depending on what's going on. I don't really care for drawing my opponent's cards that much, but I feel like in this instance it's appropriate. And then we've got we were actually debating on how to say this, the Sphagthos? Something. Anyway, the Restless Tomb, we'll call it that. So really fun land. This is kind of the surprise Gerard combo. So you can pay 5 until end of turn. Sphagthos, the Restless Tomb, becomes a black and green plant zombie creature with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. It's still a land. So, for example, if it's late game and you know that you have like 20 plus creatures in your graveyard, you could probably win with this with Gerard. I mean, it's a lot of mana, but say, for example, they know that you've got the Lord of Extinction in your graveyard and they've got an answer for that. They exile that. You can't win that way. Then all of a sudden you're kind of pushed into a corner and you know that this is on your battlefield. Most people, once again, will not be paying attention to your lands, so you just activate this and then just win. So really fun course of play. I've definitely won a few times with this, just being really surprising. So hopefully I'm not giving all my strategies away here, which I think I am. Oh gosh. Our next feature land is Winding Canyons. I only have 1 copy of this card, surprisingly, but it's so good. It's like the in a lot of ways the better version of Alchemist Refuge, but not the better version, because it's more specific. It's only creatures, whereas Alchemist Refuge is basically anything. But Alchemist Refuge costs a lot more to actually activate, whereas this is just 2 colorless. So, really cool card. I recommend you picking it up. I think since it's an older card, it's harder to find. So if you see a copy and you just have an extra, whatever, $20 or whatever it is now, just buy it. Just save yourself the pain and just buy it. I went for years not picking up one of these, and there's so many decks I could have it in. And unfortunately, like I said, I only have 1 copy, and I probably will never have another copy just because it is a little bit more expensive and harder to find. So, Winding Canyons, high recommendation there. With that, I believe that's the end of the deck tech. So thank you as always. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you on the next deck tech. Thanks, guys.